it up one day, but it's just, but the sad part is that the majority didn't get there. The majority are out of this already. Some of them went to there, and that's what you found also in your one. So you've got this sort of self-interest still, and some of them went to there, still self-interest, but not many. That mainly happened in schools where they'd talked about it. And you could see things around the room which hinted at the fact that education has a purpose. Mind you, it's an intrinsic utilitarian purpose, but then the government agrees with that, so how can you criticise it? Some said that, one or two said that, and it was cute because then I said, how do you know? Mum said. No, never heard about Dad. Mum said. And I got one or two that said that in one school, two schools actually, the two schools where it was clear that they were doing the most. Absolutely clear. The one that you saw with the community kids, because I wasn't doing it there, I had a master's student doing it there, and it was quite clear these kids, because I want to keep at arm's length, and it was quite clear that these kids were quite conscious. Now, whether they're just words or not, I don't know. But the impression in the school is that the school is being very successful with CRTs and specialists, and these kids genuinely do have a sense, but they have a lot of systems in place. You know, CRTs report not only who behaved well and badly, but who helped the others behave well. So they report on communal responsibility, not just on personal responsibility, because the A's and B's should be committed to being communally responsible. So they report on the behaviour of the A's and B's. And the teacher can have a conversation with an A and B and say, what happened? I thought you believed people had rights. Do they disappear when I leave the room? And they feel compromised. So slowly over 4 years, we're hoping this will have an impact. But I even got, I think what is, if anyone's here is Muslim, they might understand this. I got from 4 different Muslim girls a cute one which says, the teacher teaches me, therefore she respects me, therefore I must respect the teacher. I'm just assuming that's part of the teaching because they would place education very highly. So it's that kind of concept. And it even went as far as if she respects me, she'll also reward me, which is really interesting. I don't know if it's written in there somewhere or not. I didn't get a chance to check. I just know that I got it from 4 girls wearing hijab, so I figured that there's got to be something there. But that's an interesting outcome. So they had a process of their own to understand this, which makes sense. Okay, that's our task, in my opinion. In 4 years, I want to interview kids and see what happened, because I don't think it's going to happen in a year, especially in secondary. I think secondary's got a lot of work to undo, almost, because I've tried it myself in secondary. To intervene at year 10 is just almost impossible. I think you'd have to start with year 7 and then measure them by year 10 if it was incremental and see what you can get. All right, so people were putting things on the wall like this, okay? So they could just point to them and refer to them. This is called a hint. This is a visual hint. Now, on your tables, I want you to generate a list of things that are currently in your school that you would call visual hints. What are they? I'll give you a couple more. I'll skip this one and I'll go right to this one. That's a visual hint. I could just point to that and I'm saying, or I could just, it could be a whole class and I could just do that. And everybody in the class would have to think about what they're doing and is it appropriate. And that's what a hint is. A hint is allowing people room to be responsible, not to become obedient or to be controlled. So we're going to start with the concept of leading people. It's like having a long leash because you know you can draw it in if you have to. I could say some people in here are speaking and others can't hear. I could say it's disappointing because the people sitting around those speaking haven't said anything. I could say whatever I like, but I'm not telling anybody who I'm talking about or what to do. They've got to figure that out. Now, A's and B's will figure that out. A's particularly. So this is aimed mainly at A's. It's called hinting. It's the first of the skills. We're going to talk about hinting, but we're going to start with non-verbal hints. I want to know what you have by way of non-verbal hints. Any primaries raise their hand in the air? That's a sign, right? No, sorry. In class, do you raise your hand in the air as a hint that not it's time to be quiet, because that's not a hint, that's a non-verbal direction. But as a sign that at this moment something's going on in this room that shouldn't happen, without saying what it is. Yeah? Okay, that would be a hint. If you raise your hand in the air so that they will be quiet, that's not a hint. That's non-verbal, but it's a direction, because they know that means be quiet. But if I've got something I can point at or do that indicates right now something's not going the way it should because people have rights and someone's ignoring that, so figure it out, people, and get your act together, that's a hint. Okay, so on your table, think of what you do, and then come up with at least one new idea that you could do tomorrow that's feasible. Feasible. Who's got something that we could consider? It's got to be relatively low intrusive, obviously, but let's get clear what it is. It's a signal, usually visual or musical or something, rhythmic, that there is something amiss at the moment if people really do have these rights, and people should just do what's called a reality check. They should do a reality check, both on their own behaviour and the behaviour of other people in this setting, and see if they can do something about it to get it right. Okay, who's got some example ideas of what something they're either doing that sounds that fits, or because I find this concept's not that well understood even after we've discussed it, so I need, yeah.
We've got our school value posters on the wall.
And?
I don't think they get used very much.
So you're saying that one could point to those?
You could point to those, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, any others?
Our ICT guy had like traffic lights, red, amber and green, so if the noise was escalating in the room or kids weren't on task, it sort of moved the traffic light.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That makes sense. You've got that, have you?
Yeah.
I might come and get a photo, because that would be worth sharing. Can you remind me at lunchtime if I forget? Because that's the sort of thing, I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I saw one which is really cute. This teacher in, I think it was grade 5, had tapped into the internet with her computer and had the sound decibels. And the trouble was the kids were trying to see how high they could get. And it sort of backfired somewhat. But it was a good idea. It was worth a try. It seemed logical because, you could just have lines of where it should be and where it shouldn't be, and they could just self-monitor, but they didn't. They took it as a challenge. And it backfired. Yep.
Moving around the room, so if there's especially if there's group work going on and just standing next to a group.
Yeah, and that came up. Closing physical distance. Of course, what that does is it nominates a subgroup already, so you're starting to focus. So it's not the whole group now, it's part of the room that you're moving towards that's going to be a problem, and they know it. Yep, what else? A bell. Okay. And yeah, okay, that's good. Now that if it means stop talking.
No, that's another signal. A hand
Okay, good, because that's the difference between a control and a hint. Because a demand is the hand up with the bell, right? Because the hand means you're going to stop. The bell means what are you going to do? More, it's less it's less controlling basically, because the less controlling you are, the longer the leash, the more responsible they get to be, and that's the idea. One day parents of A's will complain that their children aren't allowed to be responsible in school. They'll come to you and they'll complain that you are not allowing my child to be responsible. You're making them obedient by your processes. At home they're responsible, but at school there's no opportunity to be responsible because they're forced to be obedient. It's an interesting concept. That'll include rewards too, by the way, because if they don't need rewards at home and we're giving them out at school, they will rightfully say, look, you're bringing my child down the level of moral reasoning. Why would you do that? Your job is to raise them, not lower them. So it's theoretically an interesting area. So I'll just show you some, but I need more ideas. So as you come up with things, share them, please.
There's a computer program up in the art room, and I set my laptop on the table. There's a fish in a fish bowl, And if something's happening that I don't like, or I think shouldn't be happening, I just sit down and I push the button and the water starts to go down. And you can time how long, you can make it 10 minutes or 5 minutes.